We will now hear the tribute for Senator Owen Hill. Mr. Carpenter, please read the tribute for Senator Hill.
The Colorado Senate, convened in the second regular session of the 72nd General Assembly, hereby extends heartiest congratulations and commendations to Senator Owen Hill. Senator Hill was elected to serve in the 69th, 70th, 71st, and 72nd General Assemblies, where he represented his fellow citizens with honor and dignity. During his tenure with the Senate, he served with distinction as the chair of the Senate Education Committee, as vice chair of the Senate Finance Committee and School Finance Interim Committee, and as a member of the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, as well as the Legislative Audit and Joint Technology Committees. The citizens of Colorado and the members of the Senate express gratitude for Senator Hill's exemplary service to our great state, and we wish him well in his future endeavors. Given this 11th day of June 2020, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, signed Leroy M. Garcia, President of the Senate.
Members, we will now hear from those who wish to give tribute to Senator Hill. Senator Lundeen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, with your indulgence, these remarks are too personal to be delivered through a mask, so I will draw mine down. Senator Hill is many things: a quick wit. If you're going to punch him, knock him out, because the second round of the conversation he will win. He is a vibrant intellect. He is well-read, from the classics to poetry to white papers on economics, and he will frequently offer to bore you to sleep with his thoughts around economics and matters of that nature. He is a warrior. I think it's in his nature, and that nature was probably refined with his time at the United States Air Force Academy, the United States Air Force. And quite frankly, his warrior nature was honed here as well in the Colorado Senate. But I would suggest that perhaps the greatest measure of a man is his family. And if you've met Caden and Miette and Ellis and Eleanor, who are with us here today, and his charming wife Emily, you know the measure of the man. For me personally, Senator Hill, and this is odd because I'm probably almost 30 years his senior. Okay, well, 10, 5. I'm a lot older than Senator Hill, but it's odd that someone so much younger than I would be a mentor. But he has in many ways been a mentor to me, and for that I'm grateful. He's also a co-laborer. We have worked together on behalf of opportunity, liberty, and quite frankly, logic and thought. Sometimes we lose our ways and become unmoored from logic, and we don't necessarily stop to think. We're driven, quite frankly, by the impulses of the political nature and what people expect of us. And I've always enjoyed the fact that Senator Hill has worked diligently to bring us back to logic and deep thought. But most of all, I would acknowledge Senator Hill as a friend. I am grateful for his friendship. I want to close with a reading of a poem. And this poem is significant because I think it speaks to Senator Hill's attention to the temporal and his commitment to the eternal. It's a poem entitled Ozymandias by Percy, unpronounceable middle name, Bysshe Shelley. And the poem is such. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well these passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing besides remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. I would be remiss if I didn't offer up a treat, but it's not actually much of a treat because it's kind of routine for Senator Hill, but I have here a Punch Maduro wrapped cigar, which you may enjoy later today. Senator Hill, it is my honor to count you as a mentor, a co-laborer, and friend. Senator Owen Hill.
Senator Crowder, followed by Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President, and it's quite an honor to be here speaking for Owen Hill. I was thinking back, a couple stories I'd like to relay about Owen Hill. For those of you that remember Ted Harvey, this was quite a few years ago. Ted Harvey is promoting a bill right here where I'm at, and I forget what the bill was about, but the circumstances that day was what I remembered. And if those that knew Ted Harvey, he was very vocal. He talked a lot. So Owen Hill come down here and he says, I can't understand why any Republican would ever vote for this bill. And I'm telling you, Ted Harvey was speechless the rest of the day. I think that Owen's sense of humor and the way that he approached things at that time was really amazing, because it's those that know Owen, he is very analytic, he's very intelligent, and he's done a lot to advance the state, and I've really, it's been an honor to serve with him. We come in together and we'll go out together. And I think that's going to be one of the memories I have of this place is Owen Hill. Last year I had him come down, or invited him to the opening of a railroad. It's a Rio Grande Toltec Scenic Railroad. And I invited him down with his family. And I was just about ready to leave, but Owen hadn't showed up yet. So he texted me and he indicated that even though he ran senatorial plates on his car, the state patrol did not think he should be speeding 75 into 70 or 65. He made it there in time and he got on the train. But Owen, it's been a pleasure knowing you, and I've really appreciated not only you but your family, as well as your father-in-law, who's a Vietnam veteran also. So, as an Air Force graduate of Air Force Academy, I think you've done well. I think you've served your state well. And I think you are a very good, decent human being. Thank you very much.
I have Senator Fields, followed by Senator Pedersen and Senator Todd.
Senator Hill, my fondest memories of you has always been watching you be father and daddy. Every time I see you and you have your girls here, it makes me celebrate the importance of the role that we all have as parents. I can tell when I look in your daughter's eyes that they absolutely adore you and you adore them. Our children are the greatest gift to the future. And watching you be dad reminds me of the importance of our role of shaping the future for tomorrow. So I just want you to know that even though you voted no on all of my bills, maybe, you always gave me the rationale as to why. And the quote that kind of keeps in my mind is it's a good idea, but the wrong approach. So I just want to thank you for your service to the state of Colorado and continue to be the good dad and father that you are.
Senator Pedersen, followed by Senator Todd, and then Senator Quorum's in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to have the opportunity to say my memories and what I'm going to miss about you here in the Senate. It's sad to see that this is going to be your last year here with us. I actually got to know Senator Hill when I was chair of the House Education Committee. And he always met with me to understand what we were trying to get done, always saw me as a person, tried to hear me out, didn't always support all of the bills that we sent your way. But we were able to work together in different chambers and accomplish really big things. And that was because you were willing to look at things a little bit differently, that it wasn't just a taking an order on how you were supposed to vote because of the party you represented or because of where people stood. And so I appreciate that you were willing to think creatively about policy, to look at things a little different, always hear me out, maybe not always agree, but I really appreciate the things that we were able to get done together. And there are so many things that I know without you here wouldn't have happened. And so unfortunately, we didn't get to work as much together my time in the Senate, ironically, just because we weren't on the same committees. But thank you for always seeing me as a person, to be willing to cross those party lines, to challenge ideas, and thank you for your service. We're going to miss you.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Hill. Senator Hill is an enigma. He is, I think, one of the most interesting people I have been able to work with at the Capitol and get to know. And I think what makes him so interesting is that there's this one side that is a graduate of the Air Force Academy. And so you kind of think, okay, he's regimented, he's disciplined, he loves America, he is a patriot. And then there's this other side that I think is kind of a wild man. And that is the piece that I think a lot of times we don't know and don't get to see. I can envision, and he had shared this at one point, he and his wife, maybe right after they got married, riding off on a motorcycle. Both of them smoking cigars. And I think that picture shows me the humanity of who you are. In education, we've been able to work together for the last 8 years. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but we have never been disagreeable with each other. I think there's an underlying respect and a regard for one another and our differences and our joint views. The one thing we have in common is we want the best for people. We want the best for our children and for their future. It is an absolute delight to have your kids come to the Capitol. It is an absolute heartwarming time for me to be able to see your beautiful daughters and your wonderful young son and their love, their affinity, and their respect and regard of how you have raised them. And I think so many of the things that we talk about are policy, but more important, what I take away from the time that we've been able to share together is those moments that you've showed me, pictures that your children have, something they've done, something that is unique, rebuilding in the bedroom for your girls, the cookies that they baked for you, the love notes that they have written, any and all of those pieces. And as we've talked about, the most important investment we make is our marriages and our children, in my opinion. And you have done that, and you've done it well. I think probably the funniest moment that I recall is when we were in education and you did, and is it the lotus position, the yoga on the desk, and we were all like, holy cow. Number one, strength, flexibility, and it was just, hey, seeing is believing. And so I guess what I take away in these 8 years that we have shared together is that we have grown to be friends. I love getting a text in the middle of the night, hey, just drove through Kansas, saw the Jayhawks and thought of you. And being able to know that beyond these walls, our friendship has continued. I wish you well. I wish you and your family good health, love forever, and joy. God bless you, and it's been an honor to serve with you. Thank you.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is probably one of those days that you should buy the lottery ticket again. Senator Hill, it always makes me smile when you bring your children to the floor. You have a great family. And, you know, your leaving is actually going to be a little bit of a problem for me, because who in the hell am I going to fight with on this side of the aisle next year? You know, you always talk about Senator Hill that, you know, he's always gets the last word. But last year, a day after we had a little difference of opinion, I walked up to Owen and I said, Senator Hill, let me tell you your problem. You're a lot like me. And he could not say a word. So if you ever want to use that, you're welcome to it. But by that I mean, I think we're both very strong individuals, and we truly believe what we believe, and we're not going to be bullied into changing our minds. And sir, for that I respect you. Have a great life.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks, colleagues. I'll be brief. I don't want to be redundant. We've talked about Senator Hill long enough, I think, but couldn't let it go without giving you my personal thanks, Senator Hill. There are a few people I think that we're all going to have met during our very brief period of time here that you just kind of know you're going to stay in touch with afterwards, that you know you're going to get together and break bread with. And Senator Hill is on that list of folks for myself. He has been a mentor for me, for sure, but not in the way you might think. I'm sure he's helped with policy and helping me hone my own principles. But what Senator Hill has done is really opened my eyes to the fact that this is a season, and for some of us it's a long season in our life. For some of us it's a short season, but none of us are going to be here for 25 years or 35 years. This is a season. We all have had lives before this. We're all going to have lives after this, and Senator Hill has been the person that has made sure that I stayed married, that my kids still know who their father is, and that I've really been able to keep perspective outside of this building, and a big part of that is conversations that I've had with Senator Hill. So thank you for that. You don't realize it, but you've made one person's life better, for sure. I appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that we can call each other friends, and I look forward to getting together afterwards.
Senator Priola, followed by Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to rise in respect and remembrance of our colleague, Senator Hill, and he will definitely be missed. I have marveled at his intelligence and intellect since the first day I met him. I feel like kind of losing someone my same generation, my same age here on this side of the aisle, and who will be missed for that as well. Enjoyed discussions about family and how we were similar that way. You know, even discussions about your wife's perspective on some of the bills I run. That was interesting last year. And we had a great time on Ed Committee. I'll always treasure those times, and we didn't always agree, but you ran that committee very well, and they were some pretty good years. I think in many ways, Senator Hill and I are similar but dissimilar. We definitely represent the counties we represent well, but they are diametrically opposed. Adams County and El Paso County don't have a lot of similarities, but I think we both come from the same place of thinking outside of the box, striving for something better, and trying to come at issues from a different perspective than the average person would think of. And I promise you, Senator Hill, I will take your advice on social media, someday soon.
Senator Bridges, followed by Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Owen Hill likes attention, but he loves his state and his country. I first met Senator Hill during the first month of my service here in the legislature, in the State House. We were working together on an autonomous vehicle bill. It was a big bill. The Speaker had warned me it was going to be a big fight. I had sought out the help of Senator Winter on that, then Representative Winter, and Owen called together a meeting, a stakeholder meeting, which I had never heard of before, given this was my first month in the legislature. And Senator Winter and I come in, and we sit down behind all the desks. Everyone else is out in the audience. And then Owen Hill strides in like Tony Robbins and takes over the committee hearing and just handles all the questions and does an incredible job. But it was clear he was out front. He was in front of the table, fielding questions, giving answers. It was the most Owen Hill thing I'd ever seen. But I think the service that Senator Hill has given on the Education Committee proves that for him it is not simply the attention, it is the good that we can do. There is no glory, ladies and gentlemen, to be had on the Education Committee. There is only ignominy and a chance to really help kids, to help create a system in this state that is going to lift folks up. And Senator Hill has been dedicated, although we differ on how to do that, there is no question that he is dedicated to helping kids and helping to make this state as great as it can be. He has sacrificed in his career for his country. He has sacrificed in his career for this state. We've had discussions about this, very helpful discussions for me. And I appreciate your perspective, and I appreciate your frankness. And it is clear that underneath that rugged and carefree exterior beats a heart for public service. So thank you for the sacrifices that you've made, and thank you for your service, Senator Hill.
Senator Marble, followed by Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just amazed that nobody has brought up the socks. The socks. It is your calling card. I have watched those socks. Yeah, now that it's summer, they are not in vogue. But I have watched those socks change daily from the time we were elected here. And always, a reflection, because they were given to you by your children as gifts, and they would always pick them out. And to me, that spoke volumes about the person you were. Your priorities are in order. Your priorities being your family, your children, always looking out for them and knowing that the things you did here, not just for education, but for the economy, the things, how you looked at how Colorado should actually go, in which direction, you knew that those things were going to benefit your children in the future. I think meeting your mother, too, was really an amazing experience for me because you saw the reflection of family values go from one generation to another. And in that, it mirrored a lot of how I look at my family. And to see how you treasure every moment with your wife, your mother, your children, how you fondly display those socks, and it just, it reminds me all the time of how lucky your family is to have you. And it's an odd thing here at the Capitol. We get so involved with what we do and how we do it. And you would bring your children in to experience the chaos here. And yet I've never seen better behaved children for such a long length of time here at the Capitol. They're perfect. So unlike mine, where I could never have, when they were that age, never have kept them, in a seat. And another thing that I remember that is such a dear, dear memory is how they would be crawling all over Laura Woods in her chair when you would be here or out, visiting. They had no problems making friends and associating with other people here on the floor. But that is such a reflection of you as your inner self. And I just wanted you to know that those socks were such a testament to you as a father and a legislator, senator, husband, son, and friend. You have your priorities straight, and I am so proud of you and so proud to know you. And maybe, at some point, there's other things in store for you in this realm. I have no idea. But you're a good man, Owen Hill, and I respect you very, very much.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hill, Owen, thank you for your service to the country and to the state of Colorado. It's been much appreciated. The good senator from El Paso County mentioned that a measure of a man is his family, and I agree with that. But another measure of a man is when he gives you your word, he sticks by it. And Owen's word is gold. He has always stuck by his word to me, I'm sure to everybody in here, and to lobbyists. And the other thing that I really appreciate about Owen is that his straightforwardness, as the good senator from Aurora mentioned. Owen knew how strongly I feel about the death penalty. And Owen, to his credit, came into my office and said, hey, I know you feel strongly for the death penalty, but I want to let you know my reasons why I'm against it. And he had the decency and honor to do that, and I really appreciated his straightforwardness and candor by letting me know his thoughts on it. Of course, I didn't agree, but I appreciated it. A couple things about Owen, too. I believe it was my second year, I decided to branch out a little bit and do a couple of education bills. I learned a very valuable lesson, and that is never to do an education bill. But Owen was the chair of education, and I ran a couple bills, and one was on homeless youth, and to allow them not to have to pay tuition and if they were homeless. And I got the feeling early on that most of my caucus was against it. And as a matter of fact, Andy Kirk came up to me and said, hey, this is the most important bill of the entire session. I ran it last year and it died, but this is the most important bill, in my opinion, of the entire session. He goes, what can I do to help? And I said, well, first off, don't talk in committee and don't say anything. And then the second part was, the Bell Policy Center wanted to come and testify on it. And I said, don't tell them not to come down and testify on the bill if we want any chance of this passing. And so I get into committee, and it was clear that the members were really against this bill. And I thought, well, this bill is dead. But Owen was the chair, and we were taking the votes, and he actually brought up a personal story about a relative's kid from Wyoming who was living with him and would be classified as homeless and would not be able to attend the school. And the bill passed. And I'll never forget that. And there was another bill in education that was similar to that. Everybody in the committee hated it on my caucus, and also on the floor. But because of Owen, I think those two important bills were able to pass. And so I'll never forget that. But one of my favorite memories was my second year, I believe it was. A bunch of us decided to go and have some adult beverages. And have adult beverages and go to dinner at Ruth Chris. So we had a few adult beverages. Then there was a large group of us, and there might be one or two other people that were here that remember this. So we had adult beverages beforehand. We went and had dinner and had a few more adult beverages. And then we, after dinner, went up to the rooftop of my place and had a few more adult beverages. And after about midnight, several of us decided, let's go have some more adult beverages at Tarantula's, which is a pool bar. And so we went down to play pool. There were about 6 or 8 of us that were playing pool and after midnight. And nothing good happens after midnight. That is true, that's saying. And so we're playing pool. It's probably about 1 o'clock in the morning. And like I said, 6 of 8 of us are there. And Mike Johnston was a really good friend with Owen, and they probably still are. And I love to see those two debate back and forth because it's a real art, and they do a great job of it. Well, after a while there at Tarantulas, Owen Hill and Mike Johnson were about ready to go to blows. And so several of us had to step in and separate them. And it was over something very, very important. Shuffleboard. One accused the other. I believe Owen accused Mike Johnson of cheating. And Mike Johnson took great exception to that. And so they were about ready to duke it out. And we had to break it up. And about 2 o'clock when we got kicked out of there, Owen and Mike Johnson and maybe another person on this side of the aisle and decided to go have breakfast. And this was a Thursday night. And we had to be back here at 9 on Friday. They decided to go have breakfast at 3, 4 in the morning. So I'll always remember that about Owen, and because it was a very serious topic of shuffleboard. But the thing I love about Owen, too, is if you're in trouble, if you're in a jam, he's got your back. And he'll stand with you. He's a friend, and he'll cover you regardless. And so thank you, Owen, for everything.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President, members, colleagues. Senator Hill, your bond with me is our Air Force Academy education, among other things, as well as our service here. Many people will not know that or recall that Senator Hill actually ran for the Colorado Senate for another district at another time, somewhat earlier, unsuccessfully, Senate District 11, but a hard-fought race. And I remember first meeting with you, gosh, that must be 12 years ago. We were both a lot younger. You're still young. And the thing that impressed me then and continues to do so is Senator Hill's outstanding intellect, his energy, his entrepreneurial attitude about everything, whether it be business or legislation, all about the art of the possible. your dedication to your family, to your children, I think is what gives you a passion for education and for the children of Colorado. And it was my privilege to serve with you on the Education Committee for 2 years and to really work on those issues. As our friend and colleague from Aurora says, we did not always agree. I think you and I agreed more than we did with our colleague from across the aisle. But it was that dedication to what we do in Colorado and to the children of Colorado that so impressed me, as well as your integrity and commitment to what we do here. Every time I see you, I see the wheels turning. Again, there are 1,000 ideas and entrepreneurial ones and outside the box. And I admire that. It has been a privilege to serve with you, and I wish you the very best. I hope your days in elected office and politics are far from over, but everything, and you will know when I say this, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose, and this season has been a blessing to the people of Colorado. As the senator from Douglas County says, I hope you will, even though you have maintained your bonds with your family, no doubt, I hope you will have even more time with them. It has been a privilege to serve with you.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Madam President, and I just want to tell Owen that it's been wonderful spending time with you here. And I think the lasting impression I have of being with you here versus the informal times, which are always kind of more meaningful, is that so much of what we do down here is like, who gets the $10,000? 5,000 here, 5,000 here, 6, 4, back and forth, distributive negotiation, around and round. But you always come down here talking about ideas. And ideas in general, and a lot of times it's just about the future, where we're going. And trying to bring what may be possible in the future into the present and have us look more look more forward. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I remember one of the first, well, I guess what I would say is Senator Todd mentioned earlier, she started by saying you're an enigma. And I was like, that's exactly the way I was going to describe Owen as well. The thing about Owen, so one of the first memories I have with Senator Hill is, again, we were on State Affairs together one night, and it was a late night. And we were walking out. He was walking to his, what do you have, a Jeep? He was walking into his Jeep. And I was like, man, this guy's so cool. I hate how cool this guy is. He's got a cool Jeep, dresses well, he's got these cool socks. He's got a beautiful family. What is going on? This guy's way too cool. And I remember, we were just kind of debriefing about committee, and I don't think this actually happened, but in my memory, he opened up the back of his Jeep and like 10,000 protein bars fell out. like they were filled to the brim. I think he just had like 5 in there, but my memory is that he just had his like Jeep Wrangler filled with protein bars, and that's like what he lived off of. And he was just kind of eating his protein bar, all cool like. And he was like, where are you going, bro? Like, where's your car? And I was like, oh, I'm taking the bus. And at that moment, I was like, I should have said that. That's so not cool. Taking a bus. This guy's from Colorado Springs. He's this cool Republican. I shouldn't have told him I'm taking a bus. And he's like, no, bro, I'll take you home. I was like, no, I live in Boulder. And I was like, are you going to the Springs tonight? He's like, yeah. He's like, bro, I'll take you home. It's fine. And I'm like, no, that's crazy. It's kind of not on your way to Colorado Springs. And he was just so like, yeah, no, of course, yeah, I'll take you home. And I didn't take him up on it because I was like, what is this guy up to? And I remember you said something like, no, bro, it's totally cool. I just blast some Eminem on the way home. And I was like, yeah, this guy is kind of cool. And then, and I just remember thinking on my dorky bus on the way home, why did he offer that? Why, like, it's oddly nice, like almost like too nice. Like, what is he up to? And I think later on, when we got to know each other a little bit more, I think I finally realized he's just being nice. And it just felt odd in the moment because sometimes people just, you feel like someone has an ulterior motive when they're just genuinely being good and being nice and looking out for others. And I think that's what Senator Hill often does, is I find myself doubting you, Owen, because I'm always certain you're up to something. But I don't know what it is. I've realized you don't either know what you're up to, but there's nothing, there are times when a bill would come up, or I'm talking to a lobbyist about a bill or a committee hearing about that bill, and I'm like, well, so where are the votes, And they're like, it's odd, but I think we've got Owen Hill on it. Like, I think he's voting for this. I remember each time I heard that from a lobbyist on a bill that you wouldn't expect Owen Hill maybe to vote for, I would always immediately be like, what is he up to? And a lot of times it was he just took his partisan hat off and looked at the problem and wanted to just be productive and constructive on trying to help. And I remember then when I became majority leader, and especially in this last year, there were times where I'd be sitting there and I'd be like, things are oddly smooth. And I'd be like, in my head, I'd be like, oh, is Owen not here today? I would turn around and I would see him over there doing just at his desk. And I'd be like, no, Owen's here. And then I would immediately get this fear and I'd be like, what is he up to? Not at the well all day, not talking on some of these issues I know he's got an opinion on. And I think, there are so many things we don't agree on, Owen. But I think I've come to the conclusion that most of the time what you're up to is you're just doing something from your heart. And if you disagree when needed, you'll make it clear. I think we all know that. But I just wanted to thank you for being unexpectedly sometimes kind and productive and just wanting to be genuine and to do the work and to do the job of being a senator. And I think that's what I respect of you the most. I still don't know what the hell you're up to. But I look forward to finding out in the years to come.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I remember being in the House, elected in 10, serving in 11 and 12. The 12 elections came around, and during that summer at some point, somebody involved in a campaign said, Yeah, there's this guy running for Senate down in Colorado Springs. His name's Owen Hill. You'll know him when you see him because he's like a tall Tom Cruise. In September, October, whenever the Great American Beer Fest happened, Diane and I had tickets and we were there, and I turned around and a tall Tom Cruise walked up and I said, "Oh, that must be Owen Hill." Sure enough. Critics, cynics of legislative bodies will often assume that we're here getting rich. In Congress, unfortunately, in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, that is all too often true. In the 18 years that I've spent in this Capitol, I can't think of a single member who came in here poor and left wealthy. It's the other way around. I gave up about 2/3 of my income to go to the House. My wife and I planned for that for years, and it was tough. A good senator from Westminster spoke about that yesterday. This is hard. No matter how many times we explain to constituents who might be open to hearing the truth, the cynicism remains. I appreciate Senator Owen Hill's service here because he has young children. Mine are older. My older son's 25. My younger son will turn 21 in a few weeks. But I remember them being with me the first day in the House, and they were so proud. Little Victor and little Carson. Now Carson, I think you've seen him, he's about this tall. But Senator Hill has had the challenge of having more than 2 children and younger. And girls, I want to tell you, your dad is awesome. He's been an incredible senator. But one of the things that gives me joy is just in a few days, we won't have him anymore. And you'll have him more than you've had in the past 8 years. And that's good. He's a good man. On opening day, I said of Senator Hill, "Thank you for your brilliant mind, your innovative approach to just about everything, and for being bold." And those words remain true here today. There have been times when Senator Hill and I have disagreed. There have been times when I just didn't know how to move forward, how we were going to solve a problem, especially the 2 years that I got to serve as majority leader. And that innovative mind right there would come up with a solution. Look at a way to solve a problem in a different way. I think of Owen, Senator Hill, as our Ron Paul or Rand Paul. He's a libertarian with an R by his name, and he's brilliant. I think, too, that his days in elected office probably shouldn't be over. But thinking of dad and husband, I think they might be, at least for a while. Spending time with his family, earning income. I hope those are his motivations for the foreseeable future. I have been impressed by your intellect, Owen. I don't know how you keep all of that information in your head. You're so well read. I see a similarity between you and the former Senator Kent Lambert. To be able to retain so much information and recall it and use it. I don't have that. I learned this process by seeing and hearing and doing, and I have learned from you in ways that I struggle to learn. As the chair of Senate Education, you thought in innovative ways. You reached out to people on the other side of the aisle, the chair of House Education, and you accomplished things that I've wanted to see, like charter funding equity, when very few thought it was possible. You did it. One thing that I admire about you is it's been a passion for me because as a dyslexic who moved a lot, education came hard. And I want the education system, public education, to not be one size fits all. But what does that son or daughter need? How can we best serve him or her? And you have found ways to do that. You've always kept your eye on that. I'm grateful for your support for me, your encouragement, your wisdom. And like I said about Pat Stedman, you're a reason that term limits ought not to exist. But unfortunately, in this ironic situation that we find ourselves in, I'm damn glad we have them. Because this state and this institution has taken more than its fair share of Owen Hill and his family's life for the past 8 years. It's time we let you go. Thank you.
Before Senator Hill takes to the mic, I will present my reminiscence of him. I first met Senator Hill when I was over in the House. At that time, we had a group of members who were bipartisan, and we named it the Suppers Club. It consisted of Representative Jared Wright, Representative Dan Norberg, Representative Moreno, and myself. And Senator Hill was the only senator who would regularly join us from time to time for dinner in an effort to collaborate as all freshmen. I definitely remember the night that the good senator from Greeley's talking about, because I was on the opposing team with Senator Johnson, and the good senator from Commerce City was on senators from Colorado Springs team, and he left early and frustrated, but in all fairness, over a simple game of shuffleboard in which we were far more skillful. But I remember the next morning immediately seeing him and Senator Johnson talking about education, like nothing had happened. And it's so important. If you stop and think about sometimes the dysfunction in Washington, D.C., it's because people can't get to understand people's families, know what drives them, know that there can be difference of opinions. I think back on how the good senator's been so willing to help even mentor me when I was in the minority party. We worked on many bills on veterans issues, and he was helpful many times. I think of this year when we ran the resolution for Space Force, his fierce advocacy for veterans and education. I can honestly say and truly say that there's almost no one I'd rather fight with or work with than the good senator. So for a guy from the Air Force, you're okay. Senator Hill.
Well, thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. You know, I appreciate this living eulogy so much. I'm really tempted to ask or demand Mr. Carpenter read it at length. It may be for a third time tomorrow, who knows. So I first got into politics, really started thinking about politics while working for Compassion International, an international children's poverty organization focused around the world, recognizing, for the same reason I would say I'm pro-life, is recognizing that every single human being has infinite potential. And as I spent time around the world on this, I recognized every single one of these children that I interacted with, played soccer with, played basketball with, did school lessons together with. Every single one of these children, literally without fail, talked to me about the United States of America, or America. Mzungu is what they call me in Tanzania, white boy. And it wasn't because of our iPhones, it wasn't because of our video games, it wasn't because of our late model cars or our big houses. It was this idea that America is the place, for all of its challenges, for all of our problems, America is still the place in the world that says no matter the color of your skin, no matter your sexual orientation, no matter what your father's name was, no matter who you supported in the last election, no matter your physical or your reading disabilities, no matter what, America was still the place that represented an opportunity for every single person to succeed. And that, I'd never thought about politics before until I started seeing this trend, this what those in the past have referred to America as the shining city on a hill. That is true, and it continues to be true to this day. One of the strengths of America, I believe, is our focus on process above people. The Constitution is a process. The Constitution is a process for the adjudication of power. We determine how power is used. If you want a fascinating, I think one of the most overlooked but important parts of our history is this period of time where we're under the Articles of Confederation and the failures of that, and then moving on to the Constitution. And it really was a discussion about how do we manage power. And while one of the strengths is that we say it puts process over people, one of the weaknesses, I think, and one of the ones that I regret, is that I myself also have put process over people. I genuinely believe, colleagues, that we have, as we focus on a process, as we focus on the votes, as we focus on getting things done, I have been guilty, and I genuinely ask for your forgiveness. I've been guilty of seeing you as my opponent, as my enemy, or as a tool in my victory. And I regret that. I regret how politics, not just us in here, but our system, perhaps, and I have been guilty of being a part of the problem, of seeing those around us, those we work with, as cogs in the machine, as parts of a process. And if I could go back and do it all again, I would take things very differently. I would spend more time out on that balcony and less time on the other side of those doors. I would spend more time having a drink, or candidly, more preferably a cigar, with you in the room than texting with people on my phone. I would spend more time suggesting that we get our families together than that we attend the next fundraiser. And I say this really genuinely as a regret. And I say it as a regret with my children sitting right here. It's been such a joy to have them go through this process with me. If at times you came in the mornings and things were slightly rearranged on your desk, I apologize. The process of playing hide-and-go-seek in the Capitol sometimes requires rearranging desks and chairs. It has been a great joy on that front, but I share my regrets, and I share my genuine apologies with you all. Because as G.K. Chesterton has said, education is the soul of a society as it passes from one generation to the next. And our task, I think, far more than a bill that I've passed or changing the world or the glory, the attention, as the senator meant, all those things, yes, they're very important to me. But I think far more important, what I too often lose sight on, or just ask for your encouragement and support as we move on, as we always move on, as we recognize the coming generation is far more important than our current time. And if I could give them a bit of advice, it would be the quote at the end of Gwendolyn Brooks' poem, Poem to the Young, Words to the Young. She says so richly, live not for the battles won, live not for the end of the song, live in the along. And colleagues, I look forward to continuing to live in the along with you and as part of this process. And so thank you for the opportunity to serve with you all. And Mr. President, I guess while I'm speaking of regrets, I want to make sure while I have some regrets, I don't leave without fixing another regret. Oh no. Well, Mr. President, I'll just enjoy it. Cheers. Thank you all. God bless.